Hello everyone, it's Mitch again. I just wanted to kind of switch gears. Some of the other videos I've done, I just want to tell a little bit about some of the missions I've done in Afghanistan, or I did in Afghanistan 2010, 2011. Like start with when I was in high school, I worked with a history teacher that everybody that had any interest in history loved this guy. And one of the things he did was he wanted to bring all the local veterans in and talk about their experiences. At the time, it was World War II, Korea, Vietnam veterans. And we had our regulars that would come in once a year and talk to us, and then we had some that he tried year after year trying to get them to come in and talk to us, and a lot of times they wouldn't do it. I'm sure there's some that passed away and never told their stories, but there was a few that we were able to convince into coming in and talking to the class and telling their stories. And after the fact, they were highly appreciative of what they did, and they felt so much better. It was a massive weight lifted off their shoulders. At the time, it was like 50 plus years after World War II had ended, and they had never really told anybody about it. So I always remembered that, and remembered that if nobody ever tells a story, it dies with them, and no one ever learns about what they did. And everybody knows the basic history, that we went to Europe, we went to South Pacific, and fought the Japanese, the Germans, Italians, and everyone else that was involved. And that was it. Nobody really knows the individual stories. There are some out there, obviously, but everybody has a unique story of what they witnessed while they were there. And the other part is the fact that they called us back and were highly thankful of making them or convincing them to come in and speak to us, and they just felt so much better. So that's something I always remembered. And then when it came time for me to go, in 2010, we left. Would have been very beginning of September, the end of August, early September. I was with Charlie Company 310, 10th Mountain Division, based out of Fort Drum, New York. We deployed to Afghanistan. The entire company was split up into platoons, and we covered multiple bases, and so we could cover pretty much the eastern side of Afghanistan. And each team where they were located covered an area of 30 minutes out, 30 minutes back. And because what that was, they discovered that if a patient could get back to a higher level of care within an hour, and that hour is called the golden hour, their risk for survival was greatly increased. So that's the way they spread us out around the country, and we overlapped slightly with some of the other platoons just so we could cover that entire area. And also because of that, we had MEDEVAC teams all over the place, but as far as like Apache support, gunship support was pretty limited. So if they were responding to troops in contact in one area and we were on the opposite end, there's a lot of times where they were unable to support us. And it's not their fault, obviously, but it was just we were spread too thin. Sometimes we get the help from other teams out there, from other units, or even other services, other countries. The Polish Mi-24 Heinz came to support us, and that's a story for another time. But I want to start with one of the first really rough missions we did, and it was on September 24th, 2010. We were the lead aircraft. We always flew two aircraft together, two Black Hawks. We were the lead aircraft on that day, and we had flown a couple missions during the day, and we got a mission about 8 p.m. It was dark at that time. Still winter months. So, like I said, we got the mission at 8 o'clock, and we were based out of FOB Shank at the time, and we were in a bowl, basically. We had mountain ranges all around us, and where this mission was just over the pass to the west and into the next valley where Highway 1 was located. Highway 1 was the main artery, the main transportation route that went north to south through the entire country. So that's pretty much where everything went up and down. Supplies for us, supplies for everybody, including the bad guys. But this mission was an urgent mission. I believe it was 3 wounded. It was an IED blast on the highway. It was a convoy, U.S. convoy that was hit. So we took off en route. We continued to get the 9 line, and we recorded all the data from that, the location, the grid location, the radio frequency for the troops on the ground. So we tuned in the frequency and got that ready to go. And also the last time that they had heard when this mission was initially put out, they were troops in contact, meaning that the IED blast went off, and then they were ambushed. So we immediately tried calling the ground frequency where the patients were. Couldn't initially get through because of the ridge line between us and them, so we climbed up a little bit more, and once we got high enough, we finally got through, and we're talking to the troops on the ground, and they gave us a situation report that there were 2 severely injured and one more injured, but not quite as bad. And we got over there, and they told us where to go. They had an IR chem lights on the road that we could see under night vision goggles. We located them. However, as I stated the last time, when they sent the night line, they said they were troops in contact. So at that particular time, we had a rule to where, as MEDEVAC, we weren't able to land until we had gun support because of the troops in contact. And being MEDEVAC, we are an unarmed aircraft, unfortunately. We fly the Red Cross on the side, so no guns for us other than personal defense weapons. So initially we told the ground crew we were unable to land until Apaches arrive. Unfortunately, the Apache crews that were at our base at the time, they were about a week out from going home, and or about 10 days or so. In the 10th Mountain, Apache guys were not there yet, so they were already checked out. And what I mean by that is they took their sweet time, unfortunately. So we flew a couple circles around. We're waiting for the Apaches. We kept calling them on the frequency, couldn't get a hold of anybody. They called us from the ground on the radio, and they had desperation in their voice. They said, if you do not land now, these patients are going to die. So we made the decision between our team on our aircraft. We asked everybody, hey, you guys comfortable going in and landing? Everybody agreed, yes, we will. And then we called the other aircraft and asked them if they were willing to go in, and of course their answer was also yes. So we set up on a landing to the north, and in that particular area, the only place to land where they were at was on the highway itself, which is kind of frightening in itself, being that an IED just blew up on that road. So we come in to land. We put it down pretty close to the IED blast. The wrecked vehicle was just off our nose. The medic jumped out of the aircraft. Crew chief jumped out of the aircraft. Medic went off comms, disconnected, and ran up to do a patient assessment and find out what was going on. the crew chief is standing outside the aircraft, if I remember correctly, with his M4 rifle at the ready. And then shortly thereafter, the ground crew that was there and our team and the medic started coming back with litters and patients. One critically injured was going on our aircraft, the other critically injured was going on the other aircraft, because we only had one medic on each aircraft. So just to split the load, that's what we did. And got the patient in the aircraft, and also the other injured person jumped on our aircraft. He was ambulatory, which meant that he was injured, but he could still walk. So we were taking him in as well. So he strapped in the seat, and the medic hooked back up on the intercom system and told us that they had we picked up a deceased patient. And I was like, what do you mean? And like, well, I'm not getting any signs. So he did another assessment, checked the patient out, and made the decision to start CPR. So between the crew chief and the medic, they performed CPR for probably at least 30 to 40 minutes. We were on the ground for a little while, unfortunately, waiting for the other patient to get in the other aircraft, because we couldn't take off until they were ready to go as well. And while this was all happening, as I stated, the crew chief and medic were still performing CPR. And then the crew chief told us that it was a young woman on board. And of course, immediately it sent shivers down our spines, because it's a lot tougher to lose a female than it is a male. I don't know why, but just being a man, at least when I was raised and when I grew up, you're just kind of, it's ingrained in your head to want to protect a woman. So this really hurt, and they continued to perform CPR, and finally we got the go ahead to take off. The other crew was ready to go. So we lifted off and turned back to the east to go back to FOB Shank, and just as we were crossing the ridgeline to go back into the bull, the Apaches started coming towards us, and they got us on the radio, and they asked us for a situation report, and our response was, your assistance is no longer needed, and we basically turned off the radio. We were not very happy. However, continued into base, landed at the hospital, still performing CPR. The ground medics and doctors, basically, they come out to the pads, and the medics go with them. They offload the patients. The medics go with them to where they can go inside and actually speak with the ground medics and doctors, where they can actually hear, rather than being out by the aircraft screaming at each other. So he came back, hooked up the comms, and basically he said that they called the patient, that she was gone. There was nothing more that they could do, unfortunately. So later on, we found out that the names of the individuals on our aircraft was a young 19-year-old PFC Jaysine Petree, and on the other aircraft it was a 21-year-old William Dawson. We're both heroes. They both had passed. So this was not even 2 weeks into our 12-plus month deployment, and it was devastating already. So we knew right away that we were in for it for the rest of the time that we were going to be there. So that's just one mission that I wanted to share with everybody, and unfortunately I have many, many more. Some not as bad as this one, some funny missions, believe it or not, some not so funny. So if anybody had, and my goal with this basically is to hopefully people can learn from this, and also hoping that other veterans maybe reach out and want to tell their stories as well. So to me, this is therapeutic. It's nice, it's good to talk about it, and no better way than this way. So if anybody has any questions or anything, please leave questions in the comment section, and I'll get back to you when I can. Thanks, guys.